Hi, my name's David Firth. I'm the Old Testament lecturer at Trinity College, Bristol in the United Kingdom.
Dr. David Firth, it's good to see you. Welcome back to Exegetically Speaking.
And it's good to be here again, David.
You were with us on another episode. We're going to put indications to that in the show notes so that people can go back and learn more about you and learn more about another text that we discussed a few months, or maybe it's been years now.
It's exactly a year today.
A year today? Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Glad that you're here to enjoy this with us. We are at Yarnton in the United Kingdom, which is 4 miles north of Oxford. We've been doing a conversation between Old Testament and New Testament scholars in a conference that's been run by the Evangelical Foundation for Biblical Research, and in conjunction with the good people here at Yarnton Manor, which is our linear property here.
And it's a blessing to be here. This is just such a wonderful site and a wonderful resource.
Oh, it's great. I hope everybody that's listening gets a chance to come here and enjoy a little bit of the ambiance in our great library that's coming in January of 2025. So today we're going to talk about Elijah the Tishbite. We're going to be looking at 1 Kings 17, verse 1. What's happening in this particular chapter, David?
Okay, we're actually moving to a completely new phase in the book of Kings. So we've just, in the previous chapter, gone through some changes in the dynasties of the northern kingdom, and we've had the house of Omri, and we've just had introduced Ahab. And we know that Ahab is the archetypal bad king in the northern kingdom.
Yes.
Apart from Jeroboam the first, of course, who introduced the wrong worship, Ahab's the one who finds ways to do evil that no one had managed before him. He's married to Jezebel, which turns out also to be a very bad thing because of the association.
Two bad characters.
Yeah, with the association with Baal worship. That will be an important part of what she's doing. And at this point, we're about to be introduced to Elijah, and we get our introduction to him.
For the very first time, he shows up in the book.
This is it. And he comes almost out of nowhere. We haven't had any expectation that there's a figure like Elijah. So the narrator of Kings has held this figure back until we come to this point, and then we're going straight on to him. Right.
So he enters stage left, but he enters in a grand way, doesn't he?
He does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he comes almost out of nowhere. But one of the things we know about narrative in the Old Testament is that very often the introduction of a character tells us something absolutely fundamental about who they are that's going to shape our perception of them.
Okay, interesting.
And
I'd love to know more about that. That's interesting.
Often that's an action that they do. It might be a physical characteristic about them. But for Elijah, we have a very interesting introduction.
All right. So how was he introduced here? By a narrator in 1 Kings.
Okay, let me read to you the first couple of words in chapter 17, verse 1 in Hebrew.
Okay.
Vayomer Eliyahu hatishbi mit toshavei Gilead. I'll stop at that point.
Okay.
And Elijah the Tishbite, and there's something about, was he from Tishbe? That's how it's usually translated, of Gilead. I don't think that's quite where we need to go. So, and he said, I'm hoping most of my Hebrew students can get Vayomer, and he said without a problem. Eliyahu, my God is Yahweh, my God is Yah.
That's the meaning of his name.
That's the meaning of his name. And then we have Hatishbi. Hatishbi is a gentilic, and a gentilic is a type of noun in Hebrew, and that's not just in Hebrew, but in Hebrew, which is marked by a Hirek Yod ending. Now, we still use that in English. So a Saudi ends that Hirek Yod sound at the end, or Farsi are examples that we still do that in English. So a gentilic says, this person belongs to this group. It might be an ethnicity, it might be a town. So when David's father Jesse is introduced, he is Jesse the Bethlehemite. So typically in English, we make them an ite. So it might be the town, Jesse the Bethlehemite. It might be your nationality, Uriah the Hittite. And so the gentilic, it just says this person belongs to a particular group. Now, very unusually, we notice, though, that he is the Tishbite, so he belongs to this group. What is a Tishbite? And we're not entirely sure at first. But then we see Mitoshavei Gilead. Now, most English translations at this point will say from Tishbe of Gilead, and we treat it as a town. Now, that's a very unusual thing, because if the gentilic is used of a town, you don't explain it. So Jesse, the Bethlehemite, doesn't have to be said to be from Bethlehem.
From Bethlehem, right.
To
it's
give that
redundant,
example.
right?
Yeah, it's redundant. And Hebrew narrative doesn't like redundancy. So we should be starting to think, well, that's curious. Moreover, parsing matters. And when we parse mitoshaveh, we see that it's a masculine plural construct noun. If it's a masculine plural construct noun, it's not a proper noun. So when we typically translate it as from Tishbe, we're making it into a proper noun, and that's because of partly what's in the Septuagint. But then we have a problem. Well, where's Tishbe?
Yeah.
No,
we don't have
Gilead,
a map. We don't have exactly a map, right?
And we don't know of a Tishbe. There is a town in Naphtali which is mentioned in the book of Tobit, though I don't know whether I want to make that my sort of great historical thing. But in any case, it's in the wrong place. But actually, we'll take the min of the mit off for the moment. That's where you're from. And Toshaveh is the plural of Toshav, settler, foreigner. Now, we know that Gilead in the 9th century BC was a place that was greatly influenced by Aramean invasions, by other invasion groups, and so on. And so the introduction of Elijah would, I think, read more likely the settler, the resident foreigner. Now, Dictionary of Classical Hebrew thinks the Toshav may have had slightly less rights even than the Ger. That's uncertain, so I don't want to pin too much on that. But it would seem to be that it's saying he's from the settlers. He's the settler from the settlers who were in Gilead. So I have to define what sort of settler is he. Now, frequently after this, Elijah is going to be called the Tishbite. That's the bit we keep coming back to. So it seems that he's from a foreign family, settlers. Now, they've obviously taken on faith in Yahweh, because you wouldn't call them, son, my God is the Lord, my God is Yahweh.
Right. Just by his very name, we know that he's a believer. He's a believer.
His family's believers, and so on. But nonetheless, foreigners, and recognizably foreign. Why does that matter? Well, where we find the name Tishbite, or the term, this gentilic, attached to his name, it's typically in situations where we are dealing particularly with the worship of Baal. We expect the foreigners to be the people who are going to encourage the worship of Baal, which Jezebel in particular and Ahab are going to do.
Right. So
but it's the
Israelite. He's from those people around that time who worshippers of Baal. But he's coming now into Israel.
And he's the one who is going to promote the worship of Yahweh. So that when we get to 1 Kings 18, who is God? The one who sends by fire. If Baal sends by fire, but if Yahweh sends by fire, it's Yahweh. So the story sets us up with this sudden shock that this great prophet who suddenly announces, no rain's going to come except by my word. And you think, why does he say that? What right has he got to say that? And yet he's the one through whom Yahweh is going to bring life, where the widow is in Sidon, Baal worshipping territory. Yahweh brings life there. We come to the encounter on the mountain, Mount Carmel. Yahweh is God. That's the affirmation. It's this foreigner who you might think surely can't be the one, but he's the one.
He's the one.
Because God is going to work through him, because he accepts and knows that Yahweh is God, and he demonstrates that, and everyone else then has to get through. Every time we find out he's being called the Tishbite, have a look.
Keep that in mind.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah. A lot of times people today will use the term outsider. Somebody's an outsider, somebody's an insider. But it really sort of would mean the same thing, except for the fact that these are the people who've settled from another spot, right?
Yeah.
Moved in. They've moved in. They're like immigrants who've come into our territory.
Yeah, they're immigrants. They're in our territory, but they understand who we are actually better than we thought we understood ourselves.
They understand God better than some of those who were, quote, insiders.
Yeah.
Fascinating reading. Dr. David Firth, thanks for being with us today.
It's been a pleasure, David.
Speaking. Bye-bye. Thanks to David Firth once again. This is his second appearance on the podcast. Now, when I tell scholars like David, we do this podcast to encourage the study of biblical languages, they're excited. They're eager to sign on because they want to do that as well. If you would like to study biblical languages, and why not do that? Why not consider Wheaton College? It's a great place, best place that I know, whether you're looking at undergraduate courses or graduate courses. Look in the show notes, and there'll be links to our websites there. Get started today. Thanks to our Wheaton-based team. Until next time, thank you for listening.